Put a finger down if you went to multiple appointments between 16 and 29 because you thought something is not quite right. You went to the doctor and they told you, yeah, you might have a little bit of issues. Maybe your periods are just a little bit unusual, but you're okay. And then you went to the doctor again, and then they said, oh, maybe we need to do a little bit of a surgery. And then you did the surgery, and that allowed you to have a couple kids. And then after that, you said, something is still not right. And they said, okay, cool. Let's go ahead and just take everything out. And then you went to your follow-up appointment to realize that you had been dealing with cervical cancer the whole entire time. Welcome to Becoming with your host, Morgan Tyler. I just said, okay, cool. And for years, I suffered in silence or suffered with people around me without getting the help that I actually needed. So like I said, I know sometimes people are like, why are you so happy? Like, why are you so joy-filled? It's because, y'all, there was a time where even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Yeah, I dodged a bullet. I was... Even though I went through so much with my health, God kept me. He literally saved my life. And a lot of people ask me, Morgan, why are you this way? Morgan, why do you live with so much life? And why do you live with a way about you that you just kind of like have this free spirit, if you will? Why? Because my life was spared. That's why. I didn't have to go through, even though I went through all of the things, it could have been worse. So let's get into it. Let's get into advocating for yourself. Let's get into listening to your body. And what does it look like to go to the doctor and actually care for yourself, even when no one is listening? Yeah, let's talk about it. So I want to tell the story because I think that a lot of times I either hint to it or, unless you know me personally, you actually don't know that before the age of 30, I had a partial hysterectomy. And while having the surgery, they found cancer all over my cervix. And so one of the things or questions I get often is, when are you going to have another kid? Guys, please. Stop asking women when they're having a kid, when they're going to have another kid, and just what they're doing with their body. Why? Because you don't know what that triggers. You don't know, even if, for my case, I have 3 kids. So no one would ever assume that I would have fertility issues or anything wrong with my health. But it took a while for me to grieve the fact that, one, my body wasn't doing what it was created to do. My body it was failing me. That was hard. That was a moment where I said, okay, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to birth children. I'm supposed to be able to create humans, and it's not working. Did I have 3 kids? Yes, I did. By God's grace. It took 3 surgeries to have kids. Now, granted, I think God does all things well. He does. But I did have to grieve the fact that I can no longer have children. I did have to grieve the fact that if it was my choice and I wanted to have another one, I couldn't. Now, can I be honest? There was some shame there. There was guilt there. I kept thinking to myself, am I even allowed to grieve? I have 3. Well, there's women out there who are just trying to have their one. I felt bad for even feeling the way I felt, because it felt like I was being greedy or something, or I was being insensitive. And then I had to think, and I had to pause and say, no, your feelings are valid. Every time somebody asks you when you're having another kid, whether you make it a joke or make it light, you are reminded that your body failed you. You are reminded that you literally dodged cancer. I'm grateful that he kept me, but you never know what somebody's actually going through. So let's just kind of get into it. Yes, I have endometriosis. I did survive and kind of dodge the whole process of having to deal with cervical cancer because they actually went in to do the partial hysterectomy because the endometriosis, y'all, was so severe. I had a couple of what they would call DNCs to actually get the endometriosis kind of out, in a sense. If you don't know what endometriosis is, it's when the tissue is like, it overgrows and it causes a severe amount of pain. It would take me out sometimes for all of a week. I wouldn't be able to do anything. It's a little bit debilitating. And my quality of life just began to shrink. And so there was a time in my life where I felt like I wasn't able to live to my fullest. And so, like I said, I know sometimes people are like, why are you so happy? Like, why are you so joy-filled? It's because, y'all, there was a time where even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And then to know that there are people who had to go through a full process of chemo, who maybe the cervical cancer actually took them completely out. I'm grateful. And so I want to actually give you some practical tips on how to advocate for yourself, how to go into this new year. Speaking of new year, this is actually the 3rd anniversary this week of my surgery. So this week I had the surgery. I went in to get everything done. And would be the week where I found out that I was literally living with cancer in my body the whole time and didn't know it. I do want to kind of like talk about just some of the emotions and some of the things that I felt going into the situation. As I expressed, I've been going through this entire journey from the time I turned probably about 15, 16, until really now. It's just been different levels of it. But I just remember I remember being like, okay, I've got pretty bad cycles. Okay, cool. Like, I can kind of deal with it, or I learned to deal with it. So I learned to deal with it all. And I kind of just knew, like, okay, when this time of month comes around, I'm going to be out of commission. This is how I know what to deal with it. This is what I know what I need. Just all of the things, right? And then fast forward, it was like, okay, no, this needs more than your little like at-home care situation, or just kind of like your go-to remedies. Like, it needs some true attention. So my doctor was pretty amazing. And I feel like people even have this, like, whenever I say that my doctor was a man, people are like, oh my gosh, your doctor was a man. But he was so good. And I actually ended up, in the process of this entire journey, having some women doctors, and I found that I did not like them at all. I think what my experiences were, I think I ended up having one woman doctor that I was like, okay, I can get with you. Like, we here, you get it. But the other ones literally treated me like a number. They treated me like, girl, you're gonna be all right. Like, we all go through this type thing, and that's gonna be it. Like, it was awful. So fast forward, I think for me, when I ended up having my doctor, and we really just kind of went through all the motions of, hey, what does treatment look like? What does, just kind of keeping this at bay for as long as we can. Because when we originally found out that I had endometriosis, I was so freaking young. And I know we talk about like me having a child in the season at a young age, but the other side of it all is I actually didn't think that I would be able to easily have children. Now, I know that is a whole nother hot take for another episode or another moment or whatever. But I was always told, like, hey, you have endometriosis. You are not going to be able to conceive traditionally or just as easy as most women. Fast forward years and years later, and, a couple surgeries later, of doing the DNC, because when you have endometriosis, the tissue will continue to grow and grow and grow, and sometimes can get so severe that you're just in a constant state of pain. And it can actually grow into your organs and things like that. And so, because the pain was getting so severe, I kept opting for a surgery. So the first surgery was like, okay, let's go in and let's see what's happening. Like, let's officially see if you even have endometriosis. But that is what his initial inkling was. And then the second surgery, y'all, the second surgery was actually unplanned. So I will never forget, I was in this season of just like having the worst time with my endometriosis, with my periods, with the cysts. Like, literally, usually everything would kind of like take turns in going wrong. Like, sometimes I would just have really bad periods, and then sometimes I would have bad periods, and then the cysts would kind of like come and go and, ruin my life for a little bit. And then sometimes I would just have like an intense amount of pain with the endometriosis. And so in this particular season, I was having the worst pain and just time with everything that was going on with my body. I was having periods for a month or two at a time. I would stop, and then all of a sudden, like, my cyst would happen, and just, awful, right? And so fast forward, I remember going out to dinner with my girls, and I was like, oh, we just need a girls' night or whatever. And I had these pants on. Oh my gosh, why can I not? I remember because these pants were really, really like important to me. Because, like those jeans where you're like, oh, I'm going to save up to get these. And like everybody has this brand. I cannot remember the brand right now. Jesus. But I remember these were like some of my favorite pair of pants. And they were this very light color, and like this thick material. They weren't quite a jean, but they were like a different type of material. And I wore those to dinner that night. And I remember sitting in a Cheesecake Factory and being like, okay, I gotta go to the bathroom or whatever. And I went to the bathroom and noticed that I had bled through my clothes. And I was like, I didn't even realize that I was on a period. Like, what's going on? Oh my gosh. Because again, sometimes that would happen. Like, I wasn't technically on my period, but all of a sudden I'd be on my period, And so I literally, at this point, it's not stopping. Like, every woman knows kind of like how it works. Like, you kind of go to the bathroom, you're like, ooh, that was a little gush, wow, okay. Clean up and you keep moving. But it was like just consistent. It wasn't stopping. And I remember like looking at the amount of blood. I started to get dizzy. I started to feel weak. And I called my friends from the bathroom and was like, hey, y'all, like, I need help. Like, I'm not feeling well. Something is going on. We might need to go to the doctor, like, right now. And so I ended up, they rushed me to the emergency room or whatever. Thank God for community, I tell you that. But my friends, they were like, I could tell they were so scared. We were still young at this point. I already had Layla, but I remember they rushed me to the hospital and they were like, oh, yeah. And I will never forget, y'all, I saw the biggest, the biggest clot come out. And they ended up keeping me, obviously, because hello, am I dying? Come out. And I was like, whoa, something's going on. So then that is what prompted them to go ahead and schedule surgery and like just look into what more was happening inside. And they just really basically noticed that I had a severe case of endometriosis. And then the cysts, and then I remember them saying like, I think it's like they kept saying like a molar pregnancy, which was almost like a non-cancerous tumor almost. I actually don't even remember because I was so young and like freaked out by the whole thing. And I sometimes try to suppress it, but that memory is so vivid. It's crazy. But yeah, they ended up opening me back up, and just basically once they saw the tissues, they scraped everything out. And essentially it's like almost like a refresh. Did that. And then maybe a year later, I had Zoe. And the next surgery I had was when they thought I had a ovarian cyst rupture, but it was actually my appendix. Lo and behold, basically I was having a ruptured cyst happen at the same time of a ruptured appendix. Isn't that fun? No, it's not. I'm being funny. It's not funny. We all laugh to keep from crying. But yeah, I ended up having all of these things happen at once. And basically, they put me on just different medications. And of course, birth control is one of those things that they will immediately kind of try to subscribe you, because it's supposed to kind of like level you out and help with your hormones and just all the things. But it turns out that the what's it called? Birth control didn't even help me, and it just kind of ended up having more adverse effects for me. And so once I had all three children, and after my third one, the pain just seemed to be constant and worse, and my quality of life just felt like it was diminishing, because I felt like I was living my entire life around this diagnosis. And as much as I still like was still going and doing all the things, I felt like I was giving every last bit of what I had to the people that were around me, but I was suffering in silence, and just having to keep moving, because that's what we have to do, right? We still have responsibilities, we still have to work, we still have to get things done. And that's what I was doing. I was just like, okay, we move, but I couldn't move no more. And so going into it, I said, all right, Lord, help me. And that's exactly what I literally had to pray about it. Like, Lord, if this is what you are saying I need to do to have a better quality of life, if this is why I had my three children so early when I wasn't technically ready for it, you got to let me know that this is the right way to go. And at the time when I was praying this prayer, I had a cousin who ended up actually having some of the same issues, and she had like texted like, hey, just wanted to reach out for prayer, like I'm about to go into the surgery. Had no idea that she was even going through these things. And she kind of explained, and she ended up having the surgery, then telling me like, yo, this is so much better, I feel so much better, I'm so glad I did it. And so that is what ultimately, she probably doesn't even know this, but kind of helped me make the decision, or just kind of served as a level of confirmation for me that I should do it. And so, yeah, I remember going into it with this level of grief of, hey, like, this sucks because I'm not even 30 yet, and I'm having to decide just what life looks like without functioning in the way that I was created to function. There was so many emotions that I felt, but ultimately I knew that God was like, hey girl, you're gonna be all right, and this is gonna be the best for you, and this is going to help you in the long run, even though it might seem bad. I went in feeling very, very sure. I went in with a peace and all the things. And then I remember going to my follow-up appointment. Y'all, I did not find out that I actually had cancer until my follow-up surgery appointment. Now, granted, I remember back when I was pregnant with my son, and right before finding out that I was pregnant with my son is when I was having a lot of issues. And so it caused me to go to the doctor and be like, hey, I just need a checkup. I need y'all to see what's going on, because I'm having a lot more pain than usual. I would pretty much have these flare-ups, if you will. And I remember them doing my sweep and annual and all the things. And they called me like, hey, like something came back irregular, but also you're pregnant. Well, you can't get the actual biopsy that we would normally do because it's unsafe while you're pregnant. So I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do? So they did this like safe way of doing the biopsy. And then they were like, basically what ended up coming from that was you're going to be fine. Everything's okay. And then when you have the, like, everything is mild enough where when you have the baby, pretty much like everything comes out of you. So you're good. I wasn't good at all because when I went to my follow-up appointment to check on my stitches and just like get more of a full like plan and workup or just kind of feedback of just how the surgery went and what do I need to go do to go forward, he literally looked at me, checked my stitches, and was like, oh, by the way, I do want to let you know that when we went in, these are the things that we found, and there was cancer all over your cervix. But good thing we removed it all, so you're fine. Congratulations. That is the type of doctor I had. Like, hello? But even though it seems really crazy, I do believe that, again, God does all things well, because I know that God knows that if I knew that I was dealing with such a intense diagnosis at that time in my life, I don't know that I would have made it. I think the stress would have made it worse. I think things just could have gone so differently. You know what I mean? And at the time I was driving 2 hours just to go to my doctor because at the time I had moved, and I didn't have success basically with the doctors that I was trying to go to in my new hometown. And so it was very, very interesting, or it just kind of made me laugh after I got over the initial shock of it all. Of like, man, like God is such a father, because in that moment of him telling me, because we had a relationship and because he had been my doctor for so long, he was like, yeah, but good thing you're good. Like, good thing you're covered. Good thing you're okay. And you don't have to worry about it. And it was just like, and he moved on and was like, you're good now. Like, you're okay. You don't have to worry anymore. And it was like, huh? So it was a lot of emotions to process at once, but most of all, it is why I'm doing this, because I want to make sure that women don't even have to get where I got. And I also recognize that I was extremely blessed to not have to go through the cancer side of it. Yes, I had to go through the endometriosis and the cyst and just like all that side of things. I had to go through that diagnosis, and still do. But cancer is like, it feels like a death sentence. It feels like just another level of struggle health-wise that I don't know that I would have like been able to get through. You know what I'm saying? While I'm grateful that I was spared, I think that there is a level of, I gave up sometimes when the doctors weren't listening, or when they would just throw me some medicine and pain pills and say, hey, take this and this will help you. I just said, okay, cool. And for years, I suffered in silence or suffered with people around me without getting the help that I actually needed. So go to the doctor. Don't ignore the signs. Don't ignore the moments where you're saying something is not quite right. Now, how else do we advocate for ourselves? We care for ourselves. We care for our body. I always noticed how much my pain and discomfort would actually increase when I was not taking care of me, when I wasn't taking care of my stress levels, when I wasn't actually pouring into myself. And you know me, we've talked about self-care until we are blue in the face, but internally, how was I caring for myself? Sometimes it was very, very poor. And so this year, I want to challenge you this month as you are really just going for it. You're starting the gym membership. You're doing all the things. Let's actually take the steps to care for our bodies. Y'all, I'm in my, I guess, mid-30s now. It is important to get them supplements. We are not just surviving off of vibes anymore. We are actually needing to care for our bodies in a way that is going to help us thrive. I also realized that I want to see my children and see them grow up, and I want to see what becomes of them. And so in order for me to do that, I have to care for myself. I want you to ask yourself, how are you caring for yourself more than the aesthetic? How are you actually pouring into yourself? And not only internally, but externally, like, what are your boundaries looking like? How are you saying no? Whenever I would say yes a little bit too much, my stress levels would be so high and through the roof. And I would find myself curled up in the fetal position in my bed, not being able to move because my pain was so high. Why? Because I wasn't caring for myself. Now, I do want to go back into the motherhood thing. I want to kind of touch on that a little bit because I did go through this phase of like, okay, Morgan, you have 3 kids, not 1, not 2. I think it's okay to grieve. I think that it's also okay to communicate. I think for a while I felt like I had to keep everything in, and I felt like I had a little bit of shame almost, you know? I didn't know how to process or more so communicate my emotions because it just felt like I was either complaining or I wasn't grateful. And I love my children. I do. I absolutely do. And I think I'm grateful for them. But just the idea that I have no choice is what really, really got me. And so I would say to the person who maybe you're like me, maybe you have already had several doctor's appointments and several visits or maybe even surgeries, and you feel like your body is failing you and it's not working, I would say keep showing up. Keep calling, keep trying to get the answers so that it doesn't end on the other side of things. I'm so grateful that it ended better than expected, but I know how bad it could have gotten. Thank God I listened to my body. Thank God I advocated for myself. And I want to just kind of help those who are kind of maybe even putting off the doctor's visit because you're tired of getting the same answers. Yeah. And so I want to help you. I do. I want to help you advocate for yourself. I want to help you look for the signs of like, hey, I need to go and just find a new practice altogether or find a new doctor. And I do think that there are levels. I think if you are finding that your doctor is not listening to you and just kind of like waving you off or prescribing drugs immediately and not really getting down to the root of the problem, then it is worth a conversation of like, hey, maybe I should maybe not necessarily leave the practice, but just there's so many doctors in one practice. Maybe I should see if there's another doctor I could see within that practice so that it's still convenient for you, because 9 times out of 10, you pick that doctor because it's, you know, close to where you live and in your community, or it was recommended by a friend or whatever the case may be. So maybe the practice is not bad, but maybe that doctor is just not for you. So that's one thing I would definitely recommend if you do not have that person that is seeming like is a right fit for you. Also, ask for things. Like, don't just accept whatever they're telling you. I know with insurance and just kind of like with this area in general, it's sometimes hard to get an ultrasound. It's hard for them to do certain exams and things like that without proper cause, or without them, again, just saying, hey, try this new drug that is currently circulating that we need to push, or try this that is just kind of like a instant reaction that we would prescribe every other patient that we've seen this week. Like, ask for, no, like, hey, can you do this exam? Hey, can you do this ultrasound? Hey, is there any other thing that you would recommend aside from birth control? Like, are there any other remedies that you've seen work? And unfortunately, endometriosis is one of those diagnoses that you do kind of have to live with, because there isn't technically a cure. However, I have seen within the last couple of years that it seems like there are certain drugs that they're like coming out with to help it, but I think a lot of them are still like in test form. So, but ask questions. And then lastly, I think being able to have people that you can be like, hey, this is what's going on with me and this is why I am this way. I think a lot of times I tried to hide and shrink because I felt like no one would understand what was going on. And there's just always this kind of like narrative of, oh, we all have periods. Oh, we all go through that. You're going to be fine. Like, you just need to take a day. You're going to be good. And it was like, no, I don't need a day. I need a month. I need 2 months. Like, I'm literally feeling like I cannot walk, you know? So really just being able to find those key people that you are sharing these things with and that can support you through the journey. I think you'll hear from me a lot about how important community is when you're just going through anything, really. But especially in times like this, like, community is important because you need people that understand the type of health and diagnosis you have. I have people to this day, because I still have my ovaries, I do still get ovarian cysts. And so I have people that I can literally say, hey, this is one of those days where I actually just need to be in bed. And some days when it comes to like work and stuff like that, I just take a sick day. Or, you know, sometimes I didn't share that because I just didn't want to, you know? And again, because it's like, if you don't understand or you don't know, it could just feel like, oh, well, you're taking off because you're on your period. Like, no, you know? So, I never wanted it to be that way. So sometimes, you know, I think it's still okay for if you want to keep things to yourself with certain groups of people, and be private, but don't be too private where no one knows what you're going through, because suffering alone, it also can do a lot to your mental. And so that is why I wanted to do this episode, you guys, is because I wanted to share like the warning signs. I wanted to have a moment where people who may be going through the same thing but haven't nearly gotten as far as I got, have that light bulb moment of, okay, I need to go to the doctor. I need to ask this question next time because they tried to just put me on depot and move on. Like, no, that ain't gonna be it. So, I really do hope that this just helps overall the person who is going through such a tumultuous time. I also want to help the person who has gotten that sentence of, you're not going to have kids, or it's going to be hard for you. You do not know what God can do. God has the final say. God has the final say. You hear me? God has the final say. And if these children that he owns, that he is creating, and that he has a purpose for, are supposed to be here, my God, they're going to be here, and they're going to be here through you. So do not accept just anything. Definitely do the necessary things to help along the process. And for that doctor that is trying to genuinely help you, you know, try to go through that process of getting the help, but don't just accept man's word, because when you're a daughter, you don't have to play by the rules. Like, you're still his. And yeah, he has the final say. That's it. That's all. I hope this helps. All right, you guys, that is a wrap. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can continue on the journey of becoming with Morgan Tyler.